Welcome to the presentation on web attendance. Web attendance is the tool you'll be using to track a student's entry point, absences, and last day of attendance in a course. The topics we will cover are entering attendance, how to identify missing E's, what to do when the E's are on the wrong date, how to record no-shows and NA grades, and what to do if you enter your last day of attendance by mistake, withdrawing students and how to use L's to document their last day of attendance, how to use the batch entry for a canceled class or unscheduled makeup, and what to do when you accidentally lock your roster before the end of the semester. Once the entry date is recorded for each student, faculty only need to enter absences and L's for the last day of attendance for withdrawn students. Leaving the date blank on web attendance documents the student was present in class. Attendance tracking is required at least once per week. You are welcome to enter attendance more frequently. Many faculty have found it's easiest to record attendance every day. If you are doing attendance once a week, it is best practice to pick a consistent day of the week to enter your attendance. If there are no students' absences or last day of attendance to report for the week, the faculty will still need to submit the weekly roster to be considered in compliance of the weekly requirement. A report is run every Monday to determine who has not entered web attendance during the last 10 days, and that is shared with the division secretaries. You will enter web attendance through WebAdvisor located on the Tech website. Select the Faculty tab. You will see in the upper right-hand corner Web Attendance Tracking. There are two links faculty will use, Attendance Tracking and Attendance Tracking Export. To enter your attendance, select Attendance Tracking. On the next screen, you will use the form start date. The form start date controls which dates you will see on the next screen. You will see up to 10 days out from the date you entered in the form start date to the current date. I suggest using the first day of the semester during the first month of class to make sure that you've included every date that has been scheduled for your course. Next, you will select your course and then select the Submit button. Once you've submitted the form start date, you will see a list of your students on the next page. In this video clip, I will show you the movements in real time. First, I will select the form start date. It's best to select the form start date of the beginning of the semester, 8/18. Select class and press the Submit button. On the next screen, you will now see a list of all your students, and you can start to enter your E's. In this video clip, I will show you what happens when you use the form start date incorrectly. The class in this example is taught on Tuesdays and Thursdays. However, the date that I am submitting the roster is 8/25, which is a Monday. This Tuesday-Thursday class, if I leave this date as 8/25 and I select the course and I press the Submit button, I will see on the next page there is no data being pulled forward. If I choose the Back button and then correctly select a form start date within the teaching period, I can then submit the button, and I will now see a list of the students. As you get further into the semester, the E's will no longer be visible, and there are some surefire ways for you to find out whether or not you have a student who is missing an E. The first thing that you're going to notice is when you do not have an E for a student, the days on the far left-hand side are not going to populate. The other thing that you'll notice is the far right-hand side where it says last date will also not be updating. Students in this case are usually students that we have reinstated and did not have an E at the beginning of the semester. You want to check periodically and make sure that you do not have any students in this situation. No students should have a blank line unless they have the no-show box selected. The other thing that we run into is when there's E's on the wrong date. In this example, the faculty left all of the E's on the 24th of January. The census date was the 15th of January. This left the students without being counted for enrollment purposes. The faculty then had to go through and erase all of the E's, submit the roster, and then place the E's in the correct location. Students who have never attended will be given an NA grade in WebAdvisor. NA grades are to be keyed by the faculty member as soon as the drop and add period is over. Fall of 2014 deadlines for keying NAs are September the 2nd for 2014 full-term classes, August the 26th for first mini-master classes, October 28th for the second mini-master classes. Students who have received an NA grade will not have an E date. Students who have never attended are marked with a no-show on web attendance. The no-show box is the same one that you will find as the never attended box in final grades of WebAdvisor. On this screen, you can see the screens that you'll see for WebAdvisor. You're going to key the NA in the final grade, and you will make sure that the never attended box has been selected. If you select it in web attendance, it will come through in the final grades. And if you select it in the final grades, it will come through in web attendance. It's the same box, only on different forms. Many times there is a confusion with the difference between L's for the last day of attendance and T's for tardy. At the top of your web attendance screen, you'll see a little key that tells you what each of the things that you can put into web attendance are. A is for absence, E is for the student's first day, EL is for their student's first and last day, ET is when the students have entered and they were tardy on their first day, L is the last day of attendance, and T is for tardy, and TL was they were late on their last day of class. Do not get confused about L for the last day of attendance and T for the tardy. If an L is entered by mistake, you will need to contact Gina Boudry at gvboudry@waketech.edu to have the last day of attendance removed from colleague, or you can also remove it from your final grade page on WebAdvisor. To remove the last day of attendance when an L was recorded incorrectly in web attendance, you can go to your final grades in WebAdvisor and remove the date from the last date of attendance box and save the change. This should allow the student's attendance to continue updating. There are some obvious signs to look for when you've incorrectly put an L in a roster. As you can see on the student that I've highlighted here, they have a T on one of the days. At one point, the instructor had made that an L, and they had deleted it and then changed it back to a T. They believed that it was all correct, but the last day of attendance was still in the student. You can tell that it's not updating by the first thing is the attendance is not increasing. The student is still sitting at 7 attendance hours as opposed to the 17 and 16 for their other students. The other thing that you'll notice is during the batch entry, the C's did not populate on this student because the L is the last thing that will be put on their attendance. The last thing is the dates of their last attendance date stops updating. Their last date of attendance was 2/3/2014, where the rest of the students, their last day of attendance was 2/26. If you withdraw a student, you need to make sure that you are putting in an L for the last day of attendance. Here, I have 2 examples of students who were withdrawn. The status date and the withdrawn status happens when you turn in the withdrawal form. That date is the date that the instructor submitted as the last day of attendance. The L should also be placed on the same date as the last day of attendance. Notice the 2/17 matches the withdrawal date, and the 1/27 also matches the withdrawal date. The only time that you will see that the withdrawal date is different from the L for the last day of attendance is when you have a hybrid, and the last day of attendance for the seated portion and the online portion could be different. If you need to cancel a class due to things like instructor illness or class cancellation due to weather, you will need to use the batch entry for class canceled. In the form start date, you're going to put the date that the class was canceled. You're going to select the class, and you're going to select the drop-down menu CC for class canceled. Once you've done that, you can press the submit button. Do double check to make sure your form start date is correct. You're going to enter comments on the next screen. The comments are going to be including 2 things. 1, how the class was the reason the class was canceled, and 2, how the class is being made up. It doesn't need to be very specific, it just needs to be general, but you do need to have both of those reasons in your comments. The other thing is, just do a quick double check to make sure that the date that you are canceling is the date that the C's are listed on. Once you've made this submission, you cannot go back and remove that date. You can only remove the C's from the students. You will not be able to make that correction on the roster. Faculty will still need to complete and turn in their 954 form, make up for missed or canceled classes when they cancel a class to their department office. The form is located on the Eagle's Nest on the Forms page in the Curriculum Education section. Every time a change is made on web attendance, faculty will need to submit the first line that says, "I hereby certify I am submitting this attendance information via electronic transmission in lieu of a signature." You will only select the second box, "This is my final submission, all attendance has been entered for this section," at the end of the semester when you're submitting your final roster. If you accidentally lock your roster before the end of the semester, you will need to contact Gina Boudry to make sure it is unlocked. You will see a message on your roster that says no changes are allowed, final attendance roster was submitted, and it will give you a date and your name. If you contact me right away, I will make sure I get that unlocked as soon as I can. One of the things that you can do is export your attendance to Excel. Exporting your attendance to Excel can be very helpful in calculating your number of absences or keeping a hard copy of data that shows the entire semester. If you want to take the information and put it into Excel, there are instructions on the manual that will show you how to do that. We have information on the e-learning site regarding web attendance. You can always get the attendance manual from the web attendance site on e-learning. The web attendance manual has all the information that I went over today, plus a couple of other things, and it is a good resource manual if you have any questions. There's also a frequently asked questions in the e-learning site under the discussions. Many times you are going to ask the same questions that have been asked many times before. Do double check to see if maybe the question that you have is already on that list, and if you have a new question, just add it to the frequently asked questions in the discussion, and I will answer that, and then everybody else can also benefit from those questions and answers. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me at 919-866-5885 or at gvboudry@waketech.edu. Thank you.